is up with the squad? It's Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies in the building with Political Lil. We are finishing this conversation. We got to pick it back up. We had to pick it back up. Now, I had to cut it short the other day. Because we had to get to the basketball games. So, we told you that we would be back to finish this conversation off. And I wanted to make sure that we came back and did that. So, as we get ready to get started, Lil, what's going on?
All right, nothing too much. A whole lot going on out in these sports streets.
It is. That's why we got to finish this up so we can get on with some of the other stuff that we was talking about. But I know we in the middle of this series, so Dennis Foster was good. Lisa 777, you came in. I don't know if you just coming in, but this is a series we in. So yeah, it ain't just we talking about this. This is a segment of a series that we talking about. So I don't know. Catch up if you're interested. If not, you know what I'm saying, it might not be for you. But when we left the conversation last, we was talking about blackballed but still paid, right? And as we were leaving out, we were talking about the fact we had put the facts on the table. You know, Chennedy was a top scorer for Chicago during her time there. She had produced, she had contributed. She wasn't getting benched because she couldn't hoop. Justification that kind of went from basketball to behavior, from production to comfort. So we had kind of laid the foundation of kind of what happened, and we were transitioning into how the label got built, right? What the actual moment that locked it in league wide. So Lil, how you doing today? Before we jump into the conversation? Y'all hit the like and the share. They both right there. Let's get into it. What's up, Lil?
Hey, everybody. I know y'all ears been burning up about everything going on with women's sports, but you know, we got to get back to this. We got to get back and answer the question why an incident becomes a sentence for a ball player that we certainly feel should be in the league.
Absolutely. Victory Taylor 4052. We appreciate the support, fam. Appreciate the support, fam. Appreciate the support. Let's have this conversation. Because we had kind of really gotten into it, and we traced, like I said, how the label got built. So the next question was, what was the moment that locked it in league wide? And that moment was the clip that we shared, and I'm trying to get that loaded up so I can share it here again. But there was an incident, and that incident didn't stay at play, right? It got promoted into proof. This is where we pivot from locker room whispers to something bigger. This is the moment that turned into a fan base wide verdict and a league wide sentence. So, how does one moment become a lifetime judgment? Not the meme, not the slow mo, not the clip to keep looping with the context surgically removed. Why we got to talk about why that moment mattered beyond basketball, right? If this was just a foul, even just a hard foul, it would have ended that night. Whistle, review, free throws, move on. But it didn't. It became a story. It became a referendum. It became a sentence. And so we got to be honest about this at tea time. This only happens when the system finds the moment useful. Useful to either simplify a player, defeat an economy that runs on outrage, useful to turn nuance into a villain, useful to make discipline look like common sense, combination of all of them. So in this segment, we're not going to re-argue whether the contact was real. We're here to interrogate why those consequences got amplified and why the narrative got locked so fast. Because the real power, Lil, is not in the actual collision. It's in who gets to decide what the collision actually means. Who gets permanently branded for that, right? So I want to stop right here because I'm gonna play. I'm gonna load the clip up. I want to load this clip up. Lil, your thoughts on where we at so far as this clip is loading up in the StreamYard?
Well, you know, I guess the way the play kind of happened, you know, nobody paying attention to the front end, but even on the back end of the play, you know, when you playing basketball, you know, you don't excuse nobody skipping down the court talking smack after they done just went upside your head with their elbow. You know, it was a lot of physical play going on at the time, you know, so, you know, she wanted to, from Kennedy's standpoint, she wanted to let her know, you know, you're not dealing with a punk out here. you know, and we don't know what was said as they skipped up the court, you know, but none of that got magnified. And even though people pointed that out, you know, nobody kind of wanted to pay attention to that. I personally would have waited until the ball was coming in. I'm not saying I wouldn't have, you know, laid her flat. I would have, but I would have just did it in a little more subtle way than, you know, Kennedy did it. So, but you know, these are the rules of the playground. Because had she not did nothing, the girl would have been punking her the whole game. You know.
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna run the video for those who need visual, because this like we said, this happened a while ago. So I'm gonna show the clip once, and I showed it at the end of the last show, but not to reiterate, I don't want to relitigate this play. That's not what this is about. This is the grounded conversation of what actually happened before the narrative took over. Okay. So let's roll the clip one time. Here we go. I mean, this is the full clip. So this is the contact that took place before on the other end of the floor. All right, we got the little back and forth, just basketball stuff, talk. Little collision right here. Now we back and forth up the court talking. Now we down on the other end, still same time, same play, just on the other end now. Still some talking, still some bumping. Even made some contact with a few other players. Get your hand off me there. Hip check there. This is what we saw happen, right? This is what we saw happen. So, and I'm gonna stop right there, because what the league was managing in that moment wasn't just contact; it was optics. The WNBA was sitting in the middle of a visibility pivot. New money, new eyes, new fans being introduced to the league without the league's full context, right? But with the league's product already packaged. So when Caitlin was positioned as the centerpiece of the expansion, so the real question wasn't, was this a basketball play, Lil? The question became, what does this moment do to the story we're selling? And I think that's the important part of this. Because when the league grows, they protect investments, not complexity. So when something threatens the narrative arc, somebody has to absorb that backlash. In this case, the system decided that somebody looked like it was going to be Chennedy Carter. So let's talk about that. Right? This is a moment that it didn't just drop out the sky. The game was physical, like you said. Bodies have been bumping. We can see it on the video. Contact had already been established. But the viral clip conveniently deleted was that there was no whistle before the hip check. No, it wasn't an intervention. There wasn't a tighten up. There wasn't a resetting of the tone. They weren't trying to clean it up. Officials are the ones that's supposed to set the temperature of the game. So when the refs allow that type of physicality to escalate without calling it, they send in that, hey, play through it. Who was, toughen it up. And players respond to that environment that they're given. So for me, I think fans wish environment, it's not the environment I think fans wish existed after the clip hits the timeline. So talk to us about, Lil, what actually gets erased here? What context is ignored, and how did the silence ignite the media firestorm?
What got erased actually was the whole sequence. That clip didn't show the possession, before, and it didn't show the physicality that had already been allowed. So officials come in, they set the tone, and it didn't show the referee non-call that caused that to be escalated. So once the context kind of disappeared, then the act stopped being situational and became kind of symbolic. And y'all know symbols don't need explanation; they just need repetition. So this is where race enters, quietly but decisively. A black woman's physicality is read as aggression. A white woman's physicality is always read as competitiveness. So the same contact, it just gets interpreted, in a different way. Two different ways, one black, one white. It's not necessarily because of the play, but it's because of the body performing it. And once that racialized framing takes hold, the non-call vanished from the coverage completely. And even when people brought it up on the internet, nobody, they didn't want to hear it. Nobody wanted to hear it. So questioning the officiated would have complicated the story, but I believe it would have made the incident less volatile. But of course, nobody wanted to question the referee, and they definitely wasn't gonna say nothing. So the complexity of it was kind of inconvenient. And here's what y'all gotta understand: the referee silence, it do matter, but it was drowned out because it disrupted the hero villain script. Because when that incident happened, you had a villain, you had a co-villain. Because remember, Reese was aside, but when Cece was down there and went upside the young lady head with her elbow, her teammate stood up and clapped. That was never mentioned, So talking about non-calls, that would have, required us looking at the league official and asking him, okay, why you didn't call that severe contact you saw on the other end? And then it would acknowledge the escalation and admit shared responsibility. That is not what they wanted. They wanted a narrative that became simplified. They had one aggressor, a victim, and one moment. And that's how the play becomes a profile. And that's why it takes off so fast, in the media. And there was some stuff that happened even before the clip that Cess just showed, but it got conveniently edited out. See, once the WNBA had already decided they were going to go with this villain hero narrative, that was their whole marketing scheme for 2024. So anytime they could get little pieces, to amplify what they were already, trying to put out in that time frame, and especially when it was black on white, because they were just loving that. They amplified and it took off.
Oh, absolutely. And once the moment becomes the profile, it don't end with the buzzer. That follow you. So y'all let me know in the chat too. Before we had this conversation, were you aware that there was no whistle leading up to that moment? Were you aware that the refs had just been letting them play? So and once context disappears, then we have to answer the question: who gets grace and who gets judged? And that's where we're gonna go. Because see, this is where it gets uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And this ain't about pitting players against each other. This is about how systems decide who gets buffered and who gets blamed. So we're gonna name the contrast without being messy. Caitlin Clark didn't enter the league as just a rookie. She entered as an investment portfolio. Let's be honest about that, right? She entered as an investment portfolio. Ratings, ticket demands, new fans, media leverage, and a bridge to an audience the league had been trying to secure for years. There's no argument. You get no argument from me there. Now, where I take issue is how they went about it, but that's not what this is about right now. What it doesn't mean is, even though that they brought her in as an investment portfolio, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have to earn her moment. It can't just be handed to her. So it means her moment came with protection built in. So when the pressure hits a protected asset, the system doesn't panic, it pads. She's adjusted. She's learning the pro game. She's passionate. She's carrying a microphone. The story bends towards grace. Grace is part of the investment. Chennedy Carter entered the league without that kind of institutional armor. She didn't come with that. She wasn't marketed as the league's future. She wasn't packaged as the solution, not positioned as untouchable. I don't think they thought about her even coming in, okay? Outside of calling her name at the draft, right? Unless you were a Chennedy Carter fan, you were not invested in Chennedy Carter. The WNBA didn't look at Chennedy Carter as something that was going to help get them to the next level. They didn't look at Chennedy Carter as somebody who was going to help get them to a market that they hadn't been able to reach. So they didn't see the value in Chennedy Carter. They didn't even recognize the value of what Chennedy would build for bringing in the younger group of fans that have been following her. Where was Chennedy at? Texas A&M?
Texas A&M.
Yeah, that have been following her there. They didn't appreciate her brand, but Chennedy got a hell of a brand. You don't believe me? Check her out. I keep saying blackball but paid. Remember, that's what we're talking about here. She can't play in the WNBA, but she's playing everywhere else. She got people pulling up. She got fans. So the WNBA didn't see that value. And this is part of our problem, is that they continue not to see, and not even that they don't see the value, they see the value. It's that they continue not to include or pay or reward the value that they get from having these young women in the league. So when the conflict showed up, the system didn't cushion her; it converted her. She became the villain shape, like the storyline needed. The disruption that makes the centerpiece look even more central. So the pressure valve that keeps the narrative clean. And that's the part people keep missing. This wasn't decided by the contact. It was decided by what the narrative needed to remain stable. But this narrative has been able to remain stable enough that this girl ain't working in WNBA right now. That's how stable this one moment has been able to be. And you can't tell me this about anything else. You can't tell me about anything else. Y'all can tell me what they say. Locker room problem. All the stuff they was whispering, but none of that stuff showed up anywhere else. And are you go? Is it that it just doesn't matter anywhere else to reach success? I don't know if I would agree with that. But Lil, break down what's happening here through a media and political lens.
Well, really what we're seeing is something called racialized femininity at work. So in sports media, white femininity is always coded as earnest. You know, white women are hardworking and emotionally expressive, but non-threatening. So when a white woman shows intensity, is just, framed as, that passion, that grit, competitiveness, so and then even when they show frustration, it's framed as, oh, that's just the pressure of it. But Black femininity, especially when assertive, is coded very differently. Labels put on us include excessive, volatile, threatening, and always in need of control. So the same behavior, they produce different meanings. And it's not because of intent, but it's because who's performing those behavior. So sports media they don't invent these codes. Like they didn't invent the incident, but they reinforce them through their language choices, repetition, and which clips get replayed and whose emotion, gets contextualized. So one athlete gets a narrative arc and the other one gets a cautionary tale. It's always either or. Mm-hmm. And so once that frame kind of locks in, the audience is trained to see it. And you know how we always say, once you see it, you just can't unsee it. This is the damage that narratives can do. And even today, even though that incident happened, it'll be 2 years ago, it's still as soon as you mention her name, your mind automatically go to the incident. That's how it gets locked in.
Mm-hmm. Let's say this clearly. Let's say this clearly, because people hear this the wrong way all the time. Critiquing the system is not attacking Caitlin Clark. She didn't create the framework. Now, she has the power to change the framework, but that's another conversation too. But she didn't create the framework, but she is benefiting from it, just like a whole bunch of people before her. But the issue is whether the league is willing to grow without sacrificing Black women to do it. Because once someone is cast as the threat, the next step is profit. And that takes us into the next piece of this conversation. Outrage isn't just emotional, it's economic. So let's talk about who makes money when the narrative hardens. So when we pull it all together, right? We didn't come in here to debate a clip. We came in here to study the machinery.
Mm-hmm.
So we traced how a problem gets manufactured from college promise to top 4 investment to unstable organizations that keep changing the rules mid-season. We named how language replaces accountability, but how fit becomes a cover story. How labels move faster than facts, and how exile doesn't require a suspension. It just requires silence and distance. Think about that, Lil. Think about that. Her ability to even be able to pay her bills, the way she had been paying her bills, was taken away by this one moment. That was just a basketball play, as far as we concerned. Thank you, B. Will. Yeah. We slowed the hip check down on purpose. And we told y'all it wasn't to relitigate the contact, but to expose the context, the non-calls, temperature, the official set. Because there was other responsibility in this. But the only person suffering consequences, it looked like, is Chennedy Carter. She had to pay the price for everybody. It was that, well, you know what? And that's the thing I think that irritates me the most, is that it's always the Black woman that got to take one for the team.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they didn't even give her. They didn't even give her opportunity. They didn't even ask her if she wanted to take one for the team. They just set her up to be the one to take the fall. You know, well, we got one. And sure. Chennedy, like you said, could have made a better choice in that decision. Her hip check moment could have came back different. We've played basketball, and this doesn't have anything to do with race. This is just old wily vets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know how back in my day, I could get down in the post and I might grab the back of your knee so that when I do spin, you ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? But I'm a crafty little vet like that. I'm small. I gotta make an impact down here so that I can get to where I want to go. So if I can post you and the ref can't see my hand back there, keeping your knee where it go, yeah, I'm gonna get it to go on. I give me an extra little elbow in down there when we rebound. It happens in the game. That doesn't have anything to do with race. But they were so quick to make it about race, and they were so quick to profit off the racial tension that it brought, right? Because it brought more eyes to this situation. It brought I don't even call them fans, right? Stands or whatever you want to call it. Like, they're not here because of Caitlin's basketball. And I'm not, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people here in the WNBA fan base that are diverse, a multitude of colors, shapes, sizes, financial backgrounds, all of that actually enjoy Caitlin Clark's basketball, and they show up for that. But there is another subset of people within this group that are hiding within this Caitlin fan base that didn't come here about basketball at all. They came here about narrative. They came here about political climate, and they came here about being able to use her face and her stage to be able to push bullshit on us. But that was bigger than basketball. And the WNBA is standing by allowing that to take place without saying it. And what's her name, Kathy? We in the black, y'all. We making money. Racism.
And then y'all gotta understand.
That's basically what she told us.
All this happened in an election. Yeah, this happened in an election cycle too, and that's another dimension a lot of people overlook when talking about the system. It's certain things that go on during election cycles that may not go on in an off year, especially when there's a change of power, so to speak. This was just par for the course. It was just right on time for what the WNBA had planned to do, and then how the political climate was, right before that election, and it was gold for them in a sense of who they were targeting, to bring into the basketball scenario. But for somebody like Chennedy that had to take the brunt of that, it was terrible, because you all remember even after the incident, people were following her, and Lord have mercy what was happening online, especially to black women in the WNBA. Anybody that was checking her at the time, 2024 was a very shocking and mentally draining year for these players. And all they were trying to do was put on the floor a good entertainment product. And they wasn't able to do that with all the narratives. And everybody was making money. It's not just them, it's sponsors, it's media, it's these small YouTube channels, people was making enough to set back a pension with some of the stuff they was pushing out. It was just awful, in that sense, because only certain women paid the price for everybody else's growth, and it's always on the back of black women. Go ahead, Cess. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no. You good, Lil. You good. I mean, I want people to understand that, like, I'm gonna talk about Chennedy here from a basketball perspective for a minute, and I want y'all to let me know. Do y'all think the media coverage in 2026, if it's a season, will be expanded to the league fairly, or elevated or elevated for just some players while flattening the others? Put fair or flatten in the chat for me, because this is what we got. This is what we got to move forward to. this is what we have to work through. We have to be able to get to a point where this coverage is done in a fair way, and we're seeing in other leagues that are popping up that it can be done that way. But when we look at Kennedy's professional basketball career, and I'm not going to listen. There's been some talent, and it's been some turbulence. Okay, but extraordinary talent. She had her collegiate dominance. We know she was at the Dream, she was at the Spark, she was at the Sky. But June 1st, 2024, and I think that was the day of the game, where they elevated her public persona to villain, shouldn't nearly be enough to overshadow her on-court success. It shouldn't be enough to overshadow her on-court success, right? So, and then her skill set is a perfect strategic fit for any kind of league. In the WNBA, she was averaging 17.5 points per game. Tell me the WNBA team couldn't use 17.5 points per game in their locker room. Now, in China, she was averaging a triple-double. So that tell you where her talent can go. So you can't tell me that she can't hoop. China, I think she was averaging something like 31.4 points per game. Rebounds in China went up to 7.8. Assists, 6. Assists in the WNBA, 3.1 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 48% from the floor. Didn't really shoot the three ball, but shot the three ball a little bit more in college. Elite scoring talent, Hollywood mindset. So this is a walking bucket with a rare explosive ability to get to the rim. It ain't too many Chennedy Carters out there. And if you're a real hooper, it ain't too many hoopers who wouldn't really want to hoop with Chennedy Carter. Now, y'all can get into that. Oh, the locker room this, locker room that. I don't know because I wasn't in the locker room. I don't know because I wasn't in the locker room, and I haven't had anybody really definitely say what was or wasn't. And because I haven't seen that behavior show up in other locker rooms that she's been in, I don't know. Her skill set is perfectly suited for leagues where she's the primary offensive engine. And she could have been that, I thought, at Chicago. Like remember, we was arguing about, when is they going to get this young lady off the bench so that they don't have to always be fighting from coming back?
I mean, the crowd was demanding it. People was getting itchy in Chicago. Like, come on, let's get out here. She was definitely a fan favorite. I don't care what nobody said. People was buying her jersey too. And really enjoyed her.
And then they had bought into the Barbie and Ken. Was that it? It was Barbie
big time. It was Barbie and Ken. that could have took off. We had Twin Towers. We had Barbie and Ken. I mean, they was dancing to They Not Like Us after the victories, and it was just something brewing that I thought could have been special.
Do you think the Chicago Sky have an opportunity to rekindle that? Can they bring it back?
Nah.
Can they get that energy back? No.
I don't think so. Not with that regime they got in place. Absolutely not. But if someone was to move that team to the west side, they could hit up back on the. I mean, it would be boom. It could go just like that. But because that was just a country girl in an urban environment. It was just a whole urban vibe. That they really, really killed. And I just think it was part of a bigger strategy to make sure that when they went into the CBA negotiations, there would be no black coaches that could be involved, directly in that organization between ownership and the players. See, ownership, they like to bargain clean. In other words, they'll clip you of any allies. And had you had black women coaches in any numbers at the time they were going into this particular CBA, then those are allies for the players, because a lot of them had played in the league, knew the ins and outs. They knew how these ownership groups operated. This, that, the other. They'd have been a great asset to the negotiating team. But that's how power moves, and that's how systems move. And so when they want you to be at a disadvantage, the system gonna remove anybody they think, could be an ally. And I think that, fairly or not, they wanted to get rid of that particular energy, and the coaches. And I mean, you think about it, they wiped the slate clean, right? Before they go into this, fight that they in now. So, all of that plays a role, because the players don't have any representation in leadership. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, y'all. While they're fighting this thing. And I've seen other little things that the system is doing, even trying to undermine Unrivaled, offering certain people certain stuff to kind of dim the visibility. I even thought, the opportunities that came Reese way. That all that looked like system moves. When you look at how power realigns itself to keep stability, you take the most. I mean, you think about it. Asia never played in Unrivaled, and then you got Caitlin Clark playing golf, but then you took the most visible person, and you got her busy too. She busy doing a movie or series or something, and then right. on a hold on now, and on a conservative adjacent platform. And now you got her all in, of course she, working on, some of the stuff I believe is just her company, because I think they just did a big deal with the Australia League, Reebok, becoming an official sponsor and stuff like that. But for all these weeks in the middle of a labor battle, you done had one of your highest visible youth person kind of off the scene. You know what I'm saying? It was some question of whether she was going to come, whether she's going to come back this, that. It's just a lot of moves being made, because sometimes, I don't believe all players and entertainers really understand, how the system maneuvers you in election cycles. I don't think that's something that's studied, this, that, the other, but you notice who they pulling in, to kind of pretend they inclusive, when we all know that they've been wiping out DEI, little stuff like that. But I was just really surprised. I was shocked, matter of fact, that Angel did not play an Unrivaled this year. And I know somebody had said on one of the podcasts, well, she needed some rest and this, that, and the other. In the middle of a fight is not where you rest. This is a serious labor fight here.
Well, now they talking as if Angel's coming back.
Yeah, I've heard. You know what?
I don't know. This is total speculation. I haven't seen anything where Angel has spoken or Unrivaled has spoken. It's just the social media streets.
I think at this point, since they've been given a look offer about WNBA gave them like a little offer, and they didn't do a look. Personally, she need to be there. Her visibility is important, especially if we have to pull this thing into fan activism to get these ladies over the hump, which we probably need to do. Her fan base is critical, to be able to have those assets, there, because there's no doubt that her not being there in Unrivaled this year did take some attention off of the thing. The ladies are holding their own, don't get me wrong, but I still feel that with a fan base that huge, and see, once they kind of take you away, and they do it in slick ways, they come. I mean, let's be serious. You own the Hunting Wives, a platform that have nothing but seasoned veteran actresses on it. So please don't tell me it was your acting chops. The only thing you acted in is a commercial and standing on a basketball court in half a movie. So it ain't your acting chops they wanted. They want your audience. You see what I'm saying? So your audience attention is over here in some conservative adjacent activity, and here your sisters are over here in a labor fight for their life. I just thought it was odd anyway. But yeah, I had heard something, she coming back, and I'm like, how many games they in? They just about finished. Well, I think they finish in March.
Yeah, well, but they'll be finished here soon. I think the beginning of March. But if Angel comes back with 3 games left, I think it's 3 games left, and then the playoffs, and help the Rose go repeat. That's something on their resume. That's something on their resume.
Not only that, I mean, that visibility would shift right back. Because like I said, politics is let me explain it to y'all like this. Politics is a marketplace. It's not a moral apparatus that you're dealing with. Everything is about, supply and demand and leverage. Supply, demand, leverage. It's a marketplace just like any other marketplace. So it's a lot of things that's going to go on there that has nothing to do with right or wrong. And people are maneuvering this. You have an administration trying to hold on to power, and you have everybody down the line from the NFL, all these other leagues, everybody shifting to try to bend to the current power structure that's going on in this country. And this is why you see, you look at the situation in Atlanta. Black coach, won twice as many games as Stefanski. But Stefanski get the job, and he had messed over Shedeur. And I think Shedeur's father spoke on this the other night. He said, yes, a lot went on behind the scenes where they tried to break his son. They had asked him about doing something with the NFL, and Deion said never, not after the way they treated my child. So you can imagine the type of things, and everybody that was in that whole circle that was screwing over that young man, they done been fanned out, getting hookups, job, everybody failing up, this, that, and the other. Just the complete erasure of leadership across these leagues. Because NFL and the NBA and the WNBA, they the more popular leagues. But you can just see how the room is, if you could read the room, read the tea leaves, I mean, you can just see what's kind of happening here. So when when they was talking about Unrival, and then they had moved, kind of moved Angel over here, got Nelly over here doing this, got Snoop over there being an Olympic spokesman. And I'm looking like, damn, these people are moving these things around because they're trying to maintain power because they know they're in trouble in terms of them cutting DEI and slicing women up, people losing their jobs and stuff like that. The economy, looking raggedy as I don't know what. And we're in an election cycle that starts in March, so you got to watch all these things that go on around power. And I tell people all the time, sports is a mirror of society. It's a mirror of society. So if you kind of watch how your sports is, how these leagues are kind of operating, you'll see the same thing reflected in power. But that's off the little Kennedy thing. I want to get way off the base. But I just want to let the audience know we're not here talking about people personalities and people. And I don't criticize people, different people making moves, getting their bags. I look at the system, how patterns operate. I'm a system person. I watch how power moves. What they trying to do here, I even study geopolitics when I'm not, on the line, doing sports. I got 5 or 6 geopolitical shows I watch. These things are very interesting, but you can look at how Kennedy got maneuvered out of the league, was good coverage for a line, that line Jeff. I mean, you know, the way Teaspoon was treated, that man went to the I couldn't believe this when I heard it. That man actually went to the investors and told them that he had spoken with all the top agents in the WNBA, and they said as long as Teresa Weatherspoon was there coaching, they wouldn't talk to him. I was like, what? And this is why this man has dropped this lawsuit, you know, because half of the people, most of the minority investors were very upset about her being terminated, of course, because they wasn't consulted. But then he came in there, and so one of the journalists actually went and talked to all the top agents. They said nobody told that man that, you know, nobody told him that. These kind of, this is why I'm saying you have to watch power. You have to watch how people moving around and stuff. But I believe that, you know, the league, the WNBA was determined to put on a different leadership phase. And that's why since 2022, they just started phasing black female coaches, you know, kind of out of the league, because they knew at some point these girls were going to be eligible, you know, to start this CBA negotiation. See, it made it easy for the team. If you all are watching how they played this thing, it made it easier for people to accept Chennedy being gone from Chicago in the league. You know, just because how they slickly played it. You know, you start from the hip incident, then you put in there a locker room problem, and then they had one broadcast out here claiming there was going to be a video. You know, we still waiting on that. But it's supposed to be a video of the locker room fight and all this got to carry on. You know, and so when she wasn't picked up by another team, and you know, Jeff made it difficult for her to get picked up by another team because Reese barely got in the damn league with people spreading rumors on her about her being difficult to coach and all this kind of stuff. You know, there's one reason why Minnesota kind of, you know, we're gonna let Chicago have the pick. You know, people think that people in power are the most honest people on earth, and that is not the truth. They are very, you know, diabolical in how they move to retain that power. You know, they will flatline you if need be necessary.
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it. You know, no, you better believe it. I totally understand where you're coming from. And I mean, listen. Again, if I was to say to you, unanimous National Freshman of the Year, 3-time first-time All-SEC, 2-time second-team All-American, holds Texas A&M scoring records, WNBA All-Rookie team, youngest player to score 30 points in the WNBA as of 2020, WCBA League's leading scorer 23-24 to 25, 51-point career high in WCBA. What team couldn't use that? You say, what player is that? They available? Who is that?
You ain't lying. What's
their name? What they doing? Where they at? What team are they on? You would ask those questions. You would ask those questions if you just saw those
their resume,
award stats, accolades. When you put the name on it, when you put that narrative on it, then it back people up off you. But that's a prolific and dynamic scorer. She's consistently delivered star level production from, setting collegiate records to leading international leagues in scoring.
And fun to watch.
Fun to watch. You know, she has her fan base that she engages with. She brings a fan base as well. That I think, you know, we miss. I'll say that. I definitely felt like we missed Chennedy Carter in the WNBA last year. They can say what they want to say. For the most part, she only had one season where she didn't average double figures in the WNBA, from what I can see. So I would love to see this young lady back in the league. We're going to continue the conversation. We're going to continue the conversation around her. But it was just important, I think, especially at this time as we're looking at the CBA and who goes where, and as they redefine what these women's value is and how they're paying them, that we look at, some of the mechanism and ways that they've been able to be controlling and manage players out, and police culture, and try to keep these women in line, if you will. So Kennedy, like I said, was just and Lil. It was like, man, I keep hearing every other place she go, I keep hearing good things. I'm not sure what to make of this WNBA report that she was such this locker room problem, and it was definitely worth the conversation. So, I don't think that we've even really heard Kennedy really speak to it. There have been a couple interviews here and there, but I don't think that we really heard her speak to what actually took place there. But Lil, what does her, if anything, for you, what does her international success, what does her international dominance, is that proof, I guess, that our critics are wrong, or does it simply demonstrate a different strategic need internationally? What does it say for you?
No, I think it proves that you should check the narrative that you've been given and make sure. I mean, goodness, be a critical thinker. Don't be a person that, hear anything and then spread it around like it's the gospel. The bottom line is she's able to be successful in other systems where she doesn't even speak the primary language. And I mean, she distributing just a tremendous display of skills that have to be valued and respected. And a person isn't just a one-time thing that happens to them. It's usually a little more complex than that. It just tells me that if she could be successful there, she could be successful in the WNBA. But again, it had to be under the right circumstances. I thought her having Teaspoon as a coach was the right circumstance for her. And I think she could have continued to thrive had it not been, negativity up the chain, people within the organization that, are worried about their own power positions, and stuff like that. And then, this spreading of rumors that you're not able to verify. For somebody to keep saying this, this so-called fight was filmed, and then you'll never show up with the film. Little stuff like that. And then it's a real shame that you can't be yourself and you can't speak your own truth. Because anything she says, she still got to be kind of cautious of really saying or exposing things that may have happened that harmed her, within that situation, in hopes of eventually possibly, getting back in the league, and compete for a championship and stuff. So that's I feel sorry for these athletes because they are on platforms they don't own nor control, and it's a lot of things that they suffer through, just to be on these platforms because, in the case of the United States, this is the only platform she could be on, at the highest level. And you want to play against the best competition. I know a lot of people say, well, she's dominating lesser competition. Well, you don't know that till you get over there. I thought there was lesser competition too till I went over there and played in Korea. And honey, them people over there are no joke. they got some people over there can hoop, in Asia. So, don't be fooled by that. But, it's just a shame that we don't have no type of protection for women like her, in the sport. No friends in the media. Once they hit on, we gonna go this way, this how we gonna make our money. They charging out like they out here selling heroin. It's just that it's just pitiful.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know where this ends up. I don't know if it's Kennedy ending back up in the WNBA. I don't even know if she wants to get back in the WNBA. I ain't gonna hold you up. I don't even know if she should want to get back in the WNBA. But what I did want to have the conversation for was to make us more aware and for us to start calling this stuff out and pushing back on these narratives so it doesn't happen to other young ladies. Kennedy's not the first, but I was sure like for her to be the goddamn last, right? They can just be blackballed out for no reason just because I decided you didn't like I wanted you to when I wanted you to, how I told you to. Now you can't be here too. See, I don't have any understanding for that. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I just, I'm over that. I'm over that in 2026. And somebody, made the great point. Are we still having this conversation in 2026? Absolutely we are. Because this stuff is still happening in 2026. She's still not in the league in 2026. It's still a possibility in 2026. And so this is why I'm willing to have these conversations. And this is why it's important that we talk about that we finish this series about Chennedy Carter, that we move into the wave and the watch and have a real understanding about what that means as these young people move into the NIL era and having opportunities to create generational wealth in real time. In situations where they may have to make split second decisions, and whether or not they partner with some of these brands, companies, etc. So it's important, and this is why me and Lil keep coming up here saying these things to everyone, because it's important. Okay, MJ, I saw your message. Lil, as we get ready, before we get ready to get out of here, what do you want to leave us with?
You know what? I like to lead the people with this. If conflict is normal in competitive environments, why does it disqualify some players and develop others? So, and if growth requires discomfort, why are certain athletes expected to be perfect just to stay employed? And maybe the hardest question, when redemption is never clearly defined, what's the point? Because once we start asking those questions, we can stop pretending this is about personality and start seeing it being what it is. It's about the system of power.
Exactly. I'm pull it together like this. Because I told y'all we didn't debate a clip. We came to study the machinery, how it all worked. We traced how a problem get manufactured. From college promise to top 4 investment to unstable organizations that keep changing the rules mid-season. Goalposts keep shifting, moving around. We named how language replaces accountability, how fit becomes a cover story, how labels move faster than facts, and how exile doesn't require a suspension, it just requires silence and distance. Remember I said that to y'all. I wanted to say that again so that it sticks. It just requires silence and distance. We expose the context by showing the hip check. Not to, like I said, not to relitigate the contact, but to check down and look at the purpose. The non-calls, the temperature the official set. That whole thing just became a symbol. We talked about the part nobody wants to talk about out loud, the uneven protection that these women continue to receive. Who gets framed as adjusting? Who gets framed as dangerous? How media darlings and media threats don't happen by accident. They get constructed, reinforced, and monetized. The question underneath this first part of this series that we've dropped, we'll be dropping episode 3 and 4, so 4-part series, was who decides what players are allowed to be human? How the hell is that a question that we should even be answering or even have to ask in 2026?
Wow.
In this American 2026, right? American year of 2026, right? How? Or is that something that we're asking? Who decides what players are allowed to be human? Get to be human? Who gets frustration contextualized and who gets weaponized? And the conversation not finished. Every locker room has problems. Why Chennedy Carter? That's what we're going to talk about next. Why do black women get punished for behaviors other players get coached through? Oh, that's just a coach. This is a coaching moment. We'll give you some coaching, a little extra training, some professional development, a couple extra Saturdays. You'll be great.
Sensitive training.
You know what I'm saying? We got to stop playing pretend. Locker rooms are not peace circles. They competitive. It's human. Grace is not distributed evenly. They fight in locker rooms. See, man, y'all have seen some fights at y'all jobs. Ooh, they got to fight in the locker room before they came out into the plant life on the shop floor. They got to fighting at lunchtime. They got to fighting at the construction site. They don't necessarily get to fighting as much at the corporate in the corporate buildings, but they swing some fists up there too. But we gotta understand that look at last night. Who was that? The Pistons and
Detroit Pistons. Charlotte.
Detroit Pistons and Charlotte. Isaiah Stewart. Who was that? Was that Bridges out there?
Duran, and I forgot the guy, but they got the swinging. It was terrible.
Here's a question: who can we go to for answers on this blackballing? Who do we send the questions to? Whose office or pressures do we show up for answers to the questions most of us have? It's a great question, MJ. I would start with questioning the Chicago Sky organization. I would ask the WNBA. I would ask them for an explanation of why Chennedy Carter isn't here. Freedom of Information Act on what her punishments, if any, because I don't think we found any official WNBA actions taken against Chennedy. So the pressers I'm not sure about. The pressers, it's like I don't understand the pressers at all, because they sit in the pressers and then they hear the answers and then they don't follow up with questions that make sense. Or they come into these pressers and you can ask anything and they ask the silliest stuff. You can ask anything. They'd be like, hey, so I heard you was working on a garden at your house. How's that going? What? Come on, shit to do with what we talking about. You can ask anything. And that's what you ask? Okay. We have 2 seasons of this blackballing. Is this a Carmelo Anthony? Hey, P, they want me to come off the bench moment? I don't know. Is this a Barry Sanders, I'm retiring flashpoint moment that started blackballing the Chennedy Carter? 17 point per game instant offensive force. Great questions, MJ. Great questions. I don't know. We're going to close this mini-series out, though, with redemption or exile, the cost of not conforming. And in that episode, we're going to talk about, is there a real path back, or did the league already decide? Can she really come back? Is there any locker room that she could walk in, have a clean slate, just hoop, and then see what she builds when she goes through the storming, dormant, forming stages of making a team, given the opportunity like everyone else? But if y'all missed any part of today, or you want the full context laid out without shortcuts, the recorded discussion is live on Cess Talk Sports platform. Also will be available on Lil's platform here. And we take our time and put the system on the table, not just the player. Before we step out, let's say this point. Fans, listeners, players, the pattern lands hardest on Black and brown women in the game. They need advocacy, protection, and pressure to survive these professional minefields. If you see it, move like it. Join the Respect Her Game advocacy group, respecthergame.online. Use hashtag RespectHerGame to amplify what women athletes are facing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hype these videos. Your voice, your social currency matters. Sports, we tell you all the time, it's never just about the games that we play. They're about the stories we tell and the systems we expose. This political Lil at Cess Talk Sports. We always sipping the truth and spilling the tea. Y'all stay tuned. Talk soon. We out, y'all.